crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but you know, the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
Be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, you know, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had the par in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again.
Welcome to hour number 3, live right here on this Monday on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. He's Donnie. I am Ben. One more hour to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern, where frankly, DRS, the weekend recap, looking back, that's done. What's the saying when a Monday starts here on the early line?
New week, new money, people. We got some RBI props to take a look at a little bit later in the show, so don't you worry. And maybe some left-handed batters in the city of brotherly love could be the focus tonight, Ben.
The Phils need to bounce back, brother, and we'll do that here on this Monday, looking around the MLB card. We'll have Tom Vecchio join us for his prop perspective for game number 5 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight in Boston. Game number 5 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night in Sunrise. And our full-blown breakdown with some best bets for tonight's 5th game of the NBA Finals as well. Boston 1 win away from championship number 18. Dallas 1 win away from at least keeping its season afloat and forcing a Game 6 back in Dallas on a Thursday night. So, with that in mind, what are we going to see here in game number 5? The Celtics, a 6.5-point home favorite for game number 5 tonight inside TD Garden. The total sub 210 for the first time in this series, now live at 209 and a hook. What's your best bet? That was the question in Fade the Public. What is the best bet for game number 5 of the NBA Finals tonight? And with the betting trends we are seeing and those betting stats available on the FanDuel Sportsbook, does it match what the public is telling us? At SportsGrid on Twitter, the Celtics as the 6.5-point home favorite. The Mavs as the underdog on the road. 209 and a hook. We going over or we going under? All 4 games previously under a total north of 210. Donnie, most of the public focusing on the spread, in most, nearly half, more than 48%, thinking Boston takes care of business tonight, even covering the margin of 6.5.
Yeah, here's the interesting part about this, too, is we were just reading the FanDuel betting numbers here just a short while ago, which roughly had it 50-50. That's not what the betting public now is telling us here on the SportsGrid account. They're telling us that's the Celtics by a wide margin at 48% to win tonight and cover the 6.5-point spread, as opposed to the Mavericks getting the 6.5. That split is 48% to 24%. But for me, I told you, I don't necessarily like a side tonight. I'd rather bet a total. And in true fashion of fading the public, this is exactly some of the numbers I like to see, because I voted, Ben, for under 209.5, which only 9.5% of the public here ringing in with that same endorsement through around 150 votes. So sometimes you feel really good about that, saying, okay, everybody's just looking at the sides and everybody cheers for an over. I get it. But you know me, later in the series, which is now official, later in the series, I like those unders. In a closeout game situation, you got a closeout game situation. Last time, they went under. This time as well, I think we go under. Give me the 9.5% out of your people. We're going under.
Elimination game for the Dallas Mavericks. Series clincher potentially for the Boston Celtics. As we often see, that means tight basketball. We saw nearly a 40-point margin, and still, despite Dallas scoring 122, Game 4's total of 210 and a hook stays under. The Mavericks have played 13 games in this playoff run with a total higher than 210, 11 of the 13 under. All 4 games in this series have stayed under as well. I would look there to start tonight. We really haven't seen a game, Donnie, that has been tightly contested, where both teams get over 100, but we're not thinking a huge margin decides it all. Now, Game 2, 105-98 in favor of the C's. Game 3, 106-99, pretty close, but not both teams over 100. We'll see what happens tonight. Speaking of 6.5, that was my bet on Boston. I think the Celtics cover tonight. Frankly, I think the C's win by double digits. I do not think there will be much carryover from nearly a 40-point blowout defeat in game number 4 on Friday. Boston's inside TD Garden. Maybe the narrative won out. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there was the thought in the halftime locker room, guys, we're down 26. We can take the trip back to Boston, spend the weekend at home, win championship number 18, the record setter in front of the home crowd. I expect the Celtics to rise to the occasion tonight. We have often talked about the Celtics dud at a certain point in a postseason series. Game 2, in both of their opening round sets against Miami and Cleveland. What did the Celtics do in Game 3? They covered the number. Game number 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana, having to go to overtime. Unexpected, nearly a double-digit favorite. They came out in Game 2. It was their only cover of the series inside TD Garden. The Celtics laid a big old dud on Friday night in Dallas. I expect them to bounce back tonight. That was my bet, and vote DRS, Boston laying 6.5.
Yeah, the crowd, by the way, will be expecting that, because it's rarefied air when you have in your own building a chance to clinch a championship and let that slip through the cracks. Now, also, this isn't one of those like, oh no, it's Game 6, we have to win this because Game 7 will be on the road. There is some leeway for errors here for the Boston Celtics, but I agree with you. It sort of threw that one out in game number 4, right? Hammered early, didn't have anything. By halftime, it was already over. It seemed like the players had checked out. Now, granted, we're human beings, and yes, we brought up the point. It is more fun to clinch on your home court, but you don't want to let those moments slip away, because it's not as if we talked about, on Friday, hey, we just clinched our last 2 championships on the road over the past 2 years. Let's get one at home here. That's not the case here. The Boston Celtics would love to win that championship home, away, or wherever in a bubble, you name it. They would love to claim that. I just want to watch this first quarter overall, because you do have to weather the storm for the Mavericks. And I think they can do that here. But also, if it's one of those games sometimes where the pendulum swings back to Boston and it's like, hey, Hauser's 4 of 4 from 3-point range in 3.5 minutes that we've seen before, whether it's Jason Tatum who's on fire, because the one thing we do know, Tatum pulls up for his first 3-point shot and it goes down, that usually means a big night here. I'm interested to watch that first quarter to see how the Mavericks weather the storm, because the Mavericks are up at the end of the first quarter. We're in for it. But there's a good chance that it could be 31-17 at the end of the first quarter here, and you know the drill there. Boston's going to be on top of it the rest of the way.
Game 3, technically, the Mavericks did have a lead at the end of 1 by a single point, but they were up by 13, 25-12, midway through that opening quarter before the Celtics rallied. There is the chase for a championship for Boston as a whole. This core, defined by Jaylen Brown, drafted 3rd overall in 2016, and Jason Tatum, drafted 3rd overall in 2017, and the battle between those two Jays for an NBA Finals MVP award, where Tatum's props across the board higher than that, and often considerably so from Jaylen Brown. Donnie, when you look at this season for Boston, they have had home floor advantage through the regular season with the NBA's best record and through the entirety of this postseason run. Tonight will be game number 52 for the Celtics inside TD Garden this year. In the 51 previous, 45-6 straight up at home, 27-21-3 against the number, booked as a favorite in all 52 home contests in Beantown. And throughout this series, Boston has been at least a 6.5-point favorite in both of the first two games. They have covered in both of the first two. It was a 7-point spread for most of the build-up to game number 2 between the C's and the Mavs. It closed at 6.5. The Celtics won by 7. They covered that number. Dallas entered the series 6-1 straight up and ATS as an underdog throughout their playoff run. Now 6-3 straight up and against the spread, not having covered as a road underdog of 6.5 points here before we get to game number 5. 209 in a hook is the total. 4 straight games under throughout the 2024 NBA Finals. Again, Boston just one victory away from claiming championship number 18, the most ever in NBA history. Dallas trying to do something we have not seen often, an NBA playoff series where a team has held a 3-0 series advantage. That's win 2 straight games to force a Game 6. More of a preview of Game 5 later. Monday MLB card next.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Let's fly through some Major League Baseball on this Monday. Not a full slate, but a good slate to start off this new week. It's new week, new money. And Donnie gave you the tease when Hour 3 began. a couple of lefties in the lineup tonight in the city of brotherly love at the bank, where the Phils head back home after losing the weekend set in Baltimore to try to bounce back against the San Diego Padres, who were just swept at Citi Field by the New York Grimace Mets. Minus 178, the number in favor of the Phils today, over under 9.5. What is the focus in Philly?
The focus is going to be on those left-handed bats, as we pointed out as a teaser a couple segments ago. Also keep in mind, I love this. Like, we are officially into the summer months here, at least weather-wise. Philadelphia tonight, 85 degrees, no rain in the forecast, double-digit winds blowing out to center field. Randy Vasquez on the mound here for the San Diego Padres. You take a look at his last 30 games against left-handed pitchers, left-handed batters, 38 batters he's faced here. A 200 ISO and a 450 weighted on base percentage. If you take the totality of the season, which he's only faced 63 left-handed batters, that rises to a 259 ISO and a 515 weighted on base percentage. Now, also, as I say this, he's not very good against right-handed batters either, with a 236 ISO power number to some right-handed batters. So if you were looking for the Phillies to break out tonight, maybe a team totals in your perspective, but also Kyle Schwarber, 68 at-bats against right-handed pitching over the past month, 208 ISO, 403 weighted on base percentage. Bryce Harper, only a 182 ISO, which is still above average, a 374 weighted on base percentage. And how about this? David Dahl, who was called up just a few short weeks ago, he's got 20 at-bats in against right-handed pitching so far in this season. He's got a 400 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 382, so pretty impressive there. I do think we get runs tonight in Philadelphia, but more from a Phillies perspective, but more than likely, definites in your lineup tonight, Schwarber and also Bryce Harper.
Because of the sweep, San Diego now below 500 again. Only one team in the National League West has a winning record. That's the Dodgers. They won the weekend at home at the Ravine against the Royals, but with some good comes some pretty bad. Mookie Betts out with a fractured left hand for a considerable amount of time. Yoshi Yamamoto, a strained rotator cuff, not season-ending, but will miss some considerable amount of time as well. The Dodgers now on the road tonight in Denver at Coors. It's the summer months at Mile High.
Yeah.
That means the total is 12. Offense expected tonight at Coors Field.
Yeah, I mean, come on now. 89 degrees at first pitch tonight with double-digit wind blowing out to right field. We are expecting some runs tonight. And also, the one guy that loves to provide fly balls in Major League Baseball, that's James Paxton. If we look at 17 pitchers on the card today with a minimum of 10 innings pitched since May the 1st, Paxton is 16 out of 17 with an xFIP minus of a 121. Now, sometimes you get that mixed bag because he was, I always like to say, dancing in between the raindrops for most of the season before finally getting banged around the past couple weeks. But if we are expecting that same type of performance, not a lot of strikeouts, the ball in play, that's usually a disaster mode in Colorado. And also, take a look at the Colorado Rockies against left-handed pitching, Ben, over the past month. I'm just going to read you the weighted on base percentage here. There's only two guys that are south of the average. Everybody else, Tovar, 354, Doyle, 389, McMahon, 401, Nolan Jones. Now, again, it's only two at-bats here. It's a 790, so you take that with a grain of salt. Stalling, 629, Goodman, 470, and Amador, who just got called up at a 445. This lineup should be able to hit Paxton tonight, but in the same way, Cal Quantrill actually mirrors as a better pitcher right now than James Paxton, but we know the quality of that lineup is going to be changing for those Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani projected now to be the leadoff hitter for the Dodgers. That should shake things up. But the first six guys in the lineup tonight, Ohtani, Hernandez, Freeman, Smith, Pages, and Hayward, all of those guys above average ISO power number against right-handed pitching over the past month. We should be looking at runs tonight.
So let's go to Atlanta, minus 200. The price on the money line for the Braves. Max Fried gets the start against the Tigers. Reese Olson on the other side. Over-under is 8. Donnie, Reese Olson was off to a great start this year despite just a 1-5 record. But at the end of May, he was 1-5 with a 1.92 ERA just because the Tigers couldn't hit or score runs when he was on the bump. 3 starts, though, in June. 17 earned runs given up in total. It's why the Braves, with Fried on the bump, are a $2 favorite tonight.
And the Braves lineup doesn't project all that great here. First 4 batters in the lineup, Kelenic, Ozuna, Olson, and Albies are okay. After that, Riley, Duvall, Murphy, Arcia, and Laureano against ready-to pitching over the past month. Been a disaster. But let's take a look at Reese Olson. And you're right. Seasonal statistics. Hey, look at this, Ben. A 111 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 298 through 303 batters. Sign me up. Oh, no. Take a look at the last 114 batters over the past 30 days. That jumps to a 231 ISO and a 411 weighted on base percentage. But get this, lefty batters, he had them under control to start the season. Lefty batters in the last 55, how about a 388 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 574? So if you're looking in this lineup, you say, Donnie, I don't know if I trust the Braves offense in total. By the way, Jared Kelenic here, back-to-back games with leadoff home runs. He's going to be back in that leadoff spot, and he's got a 300 ISO power number against righties. Then you take a look at Matt Olson in the middle of that lineup, 219 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 359. Those guys would be on the roster for me tonight. And you're right, Max Fried should be able to go right through that Detroit lineup. You should take the Braves, maybe in a parlay piece. I think they win, but I'd be more interested in taking some of those RBI props tonight. 87 degrees at first pitch, light winds blowing in, but that shouldn't affect the game here. We should get some runs there as well from a Braves perspective.
Even in the loss yesterday, Atlanta on the road in the Trop, they scored 6 runs. They won the weekend in Tampa. They scored 22 runs in total in the 3 games against the Rays, all 3 games over for a team that has played a ton of unders this year. 22 runs in the weekend series against Tampa Bay, more in that 3-game span than the Braves had scored in total in their previous 8 entering the weekend at the Trop. Now we go to the friendly confines of Wrigley Field in Chicago. Javier Assad on the bump for the Cubbies, minus 120 money line favorite, total of 10 on a Monday at Wrigley. Where's the wind?
Yep, 89 degrees at first pitch here at Wrigley, 10 miles an hour blowing out to dead center field. And also, you take a look at some of these pitchers who basically are average. I got Hicks around a 95 xFIP minus, and I also have Assad around a 102 since May the 1st. So not actually dominating, but not too terrible. But having said that, if we look at their non-analytical numbers, like what have they been giving up? Right-handed batters against Assad last 30 days, 375 ISO, weighted on base percentage of 522. You take a look at Jordan Hicks. His last 49 batters he's faced from the right side, 255 ISO, 380 weighted on base percentage. So if you're looking to take a couple swings, look to those right-handed batters tonight. That ball gets up in the air at Wrigley. It might be leaving the yard.
More around MLB, including Skiing's Day 7, up next.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Skeens Day number 7 in the history of Major League Baseball tonight at home inside PNC Park in the Steel City. Skeens and the Buccos, a minus 188 home money line favorite against the Cincinnati Reds with a total at 8.5. Donnie, let's start with the line. That heavily juiced in favor of Pittsburgh. Is that representative of Paul Skeens, or is something not working right for Cincy?
It's probably a little bit of a combination for both, but Skeens has been so dominant so far that that price point seems effective here, because you asked me a quick question on that. Like at the end of 5 innings, do we expect the Reds to have more than one run? No, we don't. So they got to be a heavy favorite here, just to keep a long story short.
Yeah, I think so as well. And Pittsburgh has been booked as a favorite often with Paul Skeens on the bump. He's made 6 starts. The Pirates have won 5 in all 5 of those wins for Pittsburgh, with Skeens getting the start. Skeens has recorded at least 7 Ks. So as we preview this matchup today, how do you think it breaks down between Paul Skeens and Pittsburgh against the Reds?
I look at that 8, and I like to take the under 8 here. Now, granted, 89 degrees in Pittsburgh here, wind blowing from right foul pole to left foul pole, only about 4 miles an hour, some maybe rain in the forecast, but this game shouldn't have any issues playing. Now, looking at these two pitchers, let's take a look at Paul Skeens. He's been filthy. His xFIP minus since May 1st is a 50. That's ridiculous off-the-charts type of stuff. xFIP numbers certainly low, as well as, ISO power numbers and weighted on-base percentages, but hold on a little bit here. Carson Spires, since May the 1st here, checking in with an ERA of 1.17 and an xFIP minus of 84. He's been really good. Look at his numbers here. 58 batters he's faced over the past month here, an 0.73 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 247. So it's not as if this lineup here for the Pittsburgh Pirates should just be able to come out and club their way to an easy victory. Even though I do like the way the first 5 batters in that Pittsburgh lineup do present themselves. 377, 395, 359, 329, 360, and weighted on base percentages here. I think this is going to be a very close ball game. And even if you're just taking a look at the first 5 innings to the under, that makes some sense. But I don't think we get 9 runs tonight. I really don't with these two pitchers on the mound.
So here's the thing about Cincy. They were 20-30, 10 games below 500 for a team that had a ton of optimism following a promising 2023. 20-30 on May 23rd. From that point, they have been 14-7 despite dropping the final 2 games of their weekend in Milwaukee. And again, Skeens, his K-prop today, 7.5. The over has the juice at minus 150. The last few starts, it's been 7.5, but the over plus money. Skeens himself 3-0 with a 2.43 ERA. Now we go to Arlington, where Texas, the reigning World Series champs, have struggled this season. Swept this weekend by the Mariners, 5 games below 500. Speaking of 5, make that 5 wins in a row for the New York Mets since Grimace threw out the first pitch on Wednesday. Again, it's one of the lighthearted and fun stories in Major League Baseball. The Rangers, though, a slight home favorite to snap the streak for the New York Mets and snap their own skid today.
Yeah, David Peterson, by the way, on the mound, 17 pitchers as I rated here. He's 17th on the card with an xFIP minus of 123. Here's the issue, though. His numbers don't look all that bad. ISO power numbers last 30 days of 119, which is very good, 349, which is slightly elevated. The reason being is he doesn't strike out a lot of batters, which means that ball will be in play. The question is going to be, you only have 2+ batters in the lineup tonight for me for the Rangers over the past month against left-handed pitching. It's Marcus Semien with the 208 ISO and Adolis Garcia with a 261. Everybody else, including Corey Seager, has been really bad here. So can you take advantage of that pitching mismatch you're supposed to have on the mound? John Gray has been okay. The problem here, though, is over his last 20 batters, which, again, isn't a lot, coming a little bit off that IL over the past, 60 days, I believe, was on it. 267 ISO and a weighted on-base percentage of 430. So those left-handed bats you would normally gravitate towards. It's Francisco Lindor. Yeah. Not great numbers over the past month against right-handed pitching. Nimmo, the same thing. The right-handed batters doing more of the damage. JD Martinez, Pete Alonso, and Starlin Marte. So this game should get runs, and you should be able to take advantage of these pitchers. I just don't know if those lineups can do it. So from a fundamental standpoint, probably just RBI shots from the Rangers, because Peterson's numbers, xFIP minus-wise, are really bad. But outside of that, not a lot to love for me in this game.
Second consecutive divisional duel for Boston after winning the weekend at home in Fenway against the New York Yankees in their rivalry. The Sox now on the road in the 6th against the Blue Jays, who won the final 2 games of their weekend home set against the Cleveland Guardians. Pretty close on that money line. What gives today up in the 6th?
Yeah, but it is going to be close here. You probably would take the plus money in this environment here because both of these pitchers sort of going to cancel themselves out and sort of have a little bit of an affinity here for those Boston Red Sox. I just like the way that lineup is built here, but not a huge way.
Yeah.
So, Donnie, you got to take a certain way. This one's going to be a coin toss. I'll just take the plus money here when it's all said and done.
9 games in Major League Baseball on this Monday. We broke down 6 of them to give you some winners, maybe even 7. Prop perspective on the Monday with Tom Vecchio next.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
FanDuel's Tom Vecchio is known as many things. The man that consistently provides the Monday prop perspective here on the early line. The jack of all trades, because he's going to have a thought and a bet on the hardwood in the NBA throughout the entirety of the regular season, on the ice in the National Hockey League, football during that time of year, and the home run prop king in Major League Baseball. And Vecchio, we got so close from having just a focus on a Monday MLB card before the weekend got started. But the Mavericks prevail in game number 4 to give us a game 5 tonight in the NBA Finals. And the Oilers blow past the Panthers on Saturday to force a game 5 in the Stanley Cup Final as well. So the jack of all trades at least is alive for just a few more days.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We are winding down to that time of year where it's just going to be baseball. We'll be, at that point, projecting forward for football, but a few more games in both the NBA and the NHL. Let's roll.
Let's roll into Game 5 tonight in Beantown of the 2024 NBA Finals. The Celtics back home, 1 win away from Championship 18. The Mavericks trying to get back home as well and force a game number 6. 6.5-point spread in favor of the Celtics. Total now at 209 and a hook. Vecchio, what are the numbers telling you about how Game 5 is expected to play out?
I think we're getting a little bit more respect for the Mavericks just based on, where they are at 6.5. That number would have been a little bit bigger, or was a little bit bigger earlier in the series. Tonight's game I think is all about the under. I think both teams are going to play things super tight. Wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots. I think taking unders is, across the board is the best way to go for most props overall. I will say there's one area that I think there's a clear exploit in the market. Let's say you're interested in the Mavericks money line, which is at plus 220, right? Let's just say someone out there is interested in the money line. If they win tonight, that means the series is guaranteed to go at least 6 games. 6-game series price is at plus 550. So I'm not sitting here saying I love the Mavericks money line tonight, but in theory, if they win, the series has to go at least 6 games, which is at plus 550, which is so much bigger than plus 220. So keep that in mind. There's still some exploits to take advantage of in the market if you think the series gets extended.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of those Celtics Game 5 player props here on their home court. Jason Tatum, 27.5 points listed here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Jaylen Brown, 24.5 listed. But outside of that, or if you want to include those two, who are we looking at tonight from a prop perspective for the Boston Celtics?
I'm going to Tatum over 9.5 rebounds at sitting at minus 120. And, what we saw in the last game, we have to kind of throw out just because everyone across the board played far less minutes. Tatum played 27 minutes when he's up at 42 and 45 minutes than previous games. Like, we have to basically throw out what he did in the most recent game. Seeing 11, 9, and 6 rebounds in the first 3, that's a little bit more comfortable with what I'm seeing from him. Again, tonight's not about scoring. Tonight's about defense. Tonight's about that extra effort. Tonight really should be, I want to say like a Tatum legacy game, but if this series gets extended to 6 games, at that point, the Mavericks are playing with house money, knowing that they won that game and they're back at home. So this has to be a maximum effort from Tatum and the Celtics. Everything they learned over the past 2 seasons, losing to the Heat in the conference finals, losing to the Warriors in the finals 2 years ago, this is the game for them to put the piece together and finally come away with the win when it matters most. It has to be a big Tatum game, not from scoring, from doing everything else.
Vecchio, I think that's a fair assessment. This core, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, was going to have their season success defined by an NBA championship and winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and you called it a legacy game. You said the impetus is on Jason Tatum to lead the Celtics tonight, and you think he goes over 9.5 rebounds. He has a higher points prop than that of Jaylen Brown. So, Vecchio, make it make sense to us. Why is Jaylen Brown a minus 230 favorite to win the NBA Finals MVP award?
Well, I was on Brown in a few spots on MVP prior to the series, and it comes down to the impactful shots. As we saw as he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, if he's making game-winning shots, a shot that sends it to overtime to take the lead, those are more important when it comes to winning the series and winning games rather than just simply averaging more points overall, averaging more rebounds. So when it comes to Brown, his importance when it comes to highlight real moments, whatever you want to call it, that stands out to voters rather than, this player simply had a ton of points. They won games because X player hit a shot, and that's really what we're seeing from Brown right now.
If we're taking a look at from that Mavericks perspective here, obviously we know the headliners on their team, Kyrie Irving and also Luka Doncic. Are we looking at any prop perspectives from below them that could certainly impact the market tonight? How are we feeling about the Mavericks and their props?
I don't mind some Derek Lively rebounding props just because he's been so good overall, but really my favorite prop for the Mavericks is going to be Kyrie Irving under 23.5 points. 12, 16, 35, 21 points is what we've seen from him in the 4 games this series, going over this mark just once. And, notably the first 2 games struggling big time in the road. And if I'm not expecting points overall, those points are going to be distributed among the entire team. It's not like we're going to be seeing, maybe 30-ish points from Luka, but if Luka and Kyrie are both going over, that means I should be more interested in the Mavericks money line rather than just a single player prop, because that would put them in a spot to win rather than just simply taking over 23.5 points. So it's about under for Kyrie tonight.
32.5 is the points prop for Luka Doncic, the highest entering game number 5. He has scored at least 27 in every game this series, but has not gone over 32.5, his series high, 32 back in game number 2. Vecchio, you mentioned what you thought was some value. If you think Dallas can keep this game competitive and maybe, just maybe, win its second straight to force a game 6, do you believe that truly happens outside of the value sprinkle, or do the Celtics win game number 5 and championship number 18 tonight?
I think the Celtics win, but they don't cover. And again, looking from a market standpoint and just in terms of finding exploits, I think there is a very clear spot to take if you have interest in the Mavericks. But again, ultimately, what the Celtics have learned over the past 2 seasons, they have put themselves in the spot that this is the time to shine. I think they win the game, they do not cover, and the game hits the under tonight.
How about this? Let's go back to the ice. And in game number 5, we're also going to talk about, similar to the NBA, back in Sunrise, Florida, the Panthers, a minus 137 money line price, a total of 5.5. Oilers-Panthers coming up on the deck here, Tom. How are we feeling about that game?
This game is very similar to what we saw for the NBA. Like, we can't take everything. We have to take it all with a grain of salt, I should say. A blowout in the most recent game. Players are seeing different ice times. Sergei Bobrovsky got pulled for the Panthers. Again, we have to kind of throw that out. Maybe look at a few parts here or there, but ultimately, tonight's all about the under. The Panthers are an elite defensive team. They've been here before. They've showed it throughout the season that when they make mistakes and correct it, the system that Paul Maurice has in place, their head coach, has proven over the past 2 years to constantly put them in a spot to win games. Sasha Barkov has done a phenomenal job outside of that last game at shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl overall, limiting their chances. The Panthers are at home. They have the preferred line change, which means Barkov will always be in a good spot to counter either McDavid or Draisaitl. Panthers come away with the win and the under hits tonight. I would be ultimately interested in under 4.5 and alt under because we're not going to see a ton of scoring tonight.
Yeah. Both games in Edmonton over, both games in Sunrise under. And it was a very interesting conversation on Saturday with the man called Bob, Sergei Bobrovsky, getting pulled after allowing 5 goals and facing only 11 shots. He has been the Conn Smythe Award favorite. Tom, if tomorrow night back in Sunrise we do see an under, do you think Sergei Bobrovsky ends up as your Conn Smythe Award winner?
Ultimately, he probably does, especially if it's a shutout or only one goal, only giving up one goal. Barkov, I think, has no value. As I said before, I was on Carter Verhaeghe coming into the series, but Evan Rodriguez up there at a massive number leads the series right now in goals. So if he just keeps that magic going, I'm not going to say he's the best goal scorer in the Panthers because he's not, but if he keeps that magic going, a game-winning goal, he could certainly maybe sneak a Conn Smythe trophy.
Listen, right now, Sergei Bobrovsky has only allowed 1 goal in Sunrise, but we'll see what happens in game number 5 tomorrow. The Panthers 1 win away from their first ever Stanley Cup in franchise history. Edmonton trying to make the long trip back up to Alberta after winning game 5 in Sunrise. Quickly here, Vecchio. Paul Skeens on the bump today in Pittsburgh. Ooh. What's your approach to Skeens and that strikeout prop of 7.5?
If it gets bet up to 8.5, I think there's value in taking the under simply because the number's too high, and fading the public is always a pretty solid thing to do. I would also say that Skeens for 150 plus strikeouts for the entire season is at minus 113. If he stays healthy and they don't limit his innings, that could something that would be in play, as the season comes to an end.
That's why he's the jack of all trades on full display on this Monday. Vecchio, thank you. More of the early line next.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game number 5 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight inside TD Garden. After getting blown out by 38, the Celtics' silver lining is the chance to win championship number 18, the most in NBA history, in front of the home crowd. The Mavericks head back to Beantown, trying to get back to the Lone Star State, not to start their summer, but to force game number 6. It's a 6.5-point spread in favor of the C's. Our first total, under 210, 209 and a hook for a potential elimination game and series clincher. Donnie, how do you see game number 5 playing out?
Just based on the odds, right? It should be the Boston Celtics. But a fan interest as we are, we're rooting for game number 6 and possibly game number 7 because it's a lot of fun to have it play out. The interesting part about this, too, is every once in a while handicapping throws you a wrench. We talked about heading into the NBA Finals and maybe how long these teams were off for and what you actually would be getting at a game number 1 because it's outside the norms of the NBA betting season. You're playing every other night, every third night, most likely, and you sort of stay in that rhythm. It's okay, let me watch it play out. But also from a perspective of we just saw game number 4, which was an absolute shellacking here of 40 points for the Mavericks over the Celtics. So you're saying to yourself, is that momentum going to carry over? Or the Boston Celtics just came in that game with the wrong mindset in a closeout game where they can win an NBA championship? That's baffling to me. But the one thing that we do know, and you can rest on your laurels, is typically you are a better home team. And Ben has pointed out so many times throughout the length of this NBA season how good Boston is at home. That means something here. The home crowd on your side, a chance to clinch an NBA championship on your own floor. You're supposed to get that job done tonight. So if I had to take a side, it would be the Boston Celtics because I'm not going to tell you, well, Ben, I think the Boston Celtics win. I just don't think they can cover the 6.5. That's dumb. It's not 13.5, 15.5 where you could expect a double-digit victory and still get the close. But the one thing I do like, though, and Tom Vecchio also brought this out, 209.5 to the under. Everything means so much more in a closeout game. You also take a look at the last game. If that 209.5 price was still there, stays under the total despite you have the Mavericks getting over 120 points. I look for both of these teams around 100 points. I just don't think they're going to be able to get to that 210 number to beat that. I think the Celtics win this game and the game stays under the total, but I would love to be wrong on the Celtics side to get us a game number 6, Ben.
And if Boston does bounce back and wins an NBA championship tonight, you would expect a much better defensive performance than what we saw in game number 4 on Friday, getting blown out in the opening half and then letting things really get off the rails. But we have not seen either team, or both teams, I should say, reach 100 points in any of the 4 games of this series. One team has scored 100 in all 4 games. We have not seen both clubs reach the century mark in the same game so far. It has led to 4 games, 4 unders. All 4 of the previous totals started the game at least higher than 210. This one under at 209 and a hook. I said it in the Fade the Public poll. I say it again here. Boston laying 6.5. The Celtics have played 51 games inside TD Garden throughout this season, both in the regular season and throughout this postseason run. They've won 45 of 51. They are 27-21-3 against the spread, favored in every single game in Beantown. And the Celtics have laid duds throughout this NBA playoff run. It has been a story for the Celtics this year and in previous seasons when they were expected to contend for an NBA championship. Game 2 against Miami. Game 2 against Cleveland. What did the Celtics do? Go on the road in Game 3, win and cover as at least a 7-point favorite. Game 1, they escaped in overtime of the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. It was one of their biggest duds to start off that series. The only cover they had against the Pacers was in Game 2, winning by double digits and covering for the first time as a single-digit favorite at home inside TD Garden throughout this playoff run. And Game 4 was certainly a dud. In Dallas, I expect the Celtics to cover 6.5 tonight and win championship number 18. Now let's get to the individuals that will indicate what the outcome is. For Boston, it's the comparison of the Jays. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 27.5 points for Tatum, 24.5 points for Jaylen Brown. And Donnie, it goes right back into the NBA Finals MVP conversation. Every prop on your screen that Jason Tatum has is higher than that of Jaylen Brown, and yet he is the underdog in the NBA Finals MVP conversation. Brown minus 230, Tatum plus 220.
Yeah, I'm going to put my chips in Jason Tatum's basket here. You take a look at that 27.5. I do think he goes over that. And again, maybe they get beat by 40 points and he sits the entirety of the second half. Maybe that's going to happen again. Obviously, we don't think that's going to be the case. This game is going to be won or lost based on Jason Tatum shooting 25 plus times. I also like Jason Tatum. It is expensive at the FanDuel Sportsbook, over 2.5 3-point shots made at a minus 146 price. So that also would correlate into, I do think Jason Tatum is going to be the NBA Finals MVP when it's all said and done, because of a better performance than obviously Brown would have tonight. But also Derek White, over 3.5 3-point shots, not as expensive. It's at a plus 126 point. I can see him getting down with 4 or more 3-point shots. I always like the B guys at home because they tend to shoot a little and play a little bit better at home. So that's where I'm going. Tatum over threes, Tatum points, Derek White over threes.
And we'll get to Luka Doncic in just a moment at 32.5, but 23.5 is the number for Kyrie Irving. That was way too complimentary of the Boston crowd in the first 2 games of this NBA Finals. Whatever he needs to do to get into his bag and go over 23.5 tonight, albeit hopefully not just slander people necessarily, Kyrie Irving should do that, because, Donnie, if he doesn't go over 23.5, I don't think the Mavericks even cover as a 6.5-point dog in Beantown tonight.
No, he's got to, again, this game is going to be based on the superstars. You want to take a look at that 60-point number we always talk about with Luka Doncic and Kyrie. They got to clear that hurdle. They have to do that tonight. But also saying the same thing on the opposite side. If you get good performances out of Luka and Kyrie, you know who has to have good performances? The J brothers there over there in Boston. And I expect good performances all the way around. Well, Donnie, why aren't you just taking the over at this point? One of those two things isn't going to happen where both of these stars go toe-to-toe. I think it's going to be Luka, and I think it's going to be Tatum here.
Good performances could also be on the defensive end, and Jrue Holiday should be a part of our conversation as well. We'll talk a little bit more about the props, give you one final best bet on this Monday ahead of game number 5 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight inside TD Garden. Next.
Panthers minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game number 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. Boston 1 win away from championship number 18. Can the Mavericks do what has nearly been impossible, and that's be down an 0-3 series deficit in a best-of-7 and win 2 consecutive games? I think if that happens, Donnie, Luka Doncic has to go off once again. He has scored 27 or more in all 4 games of this 2024 NBA Finals set to this point, including 30-plus in both of the 2 games in Boston, but never over 32 and a half. I like the number on Luka Doncic tonight, not only because he scored 30-plus in both in Beantown, but you look at 27 in Game 3. If he hadn't fouled out with 4:12 remaining in regulation, probably goes over 32 and a half. And if the game was even remotely more competitive on Friday, finishing with 29 points, he goes over 32 and a hook as well. If the Mavericks even keep this game close and competitive, Luka Doncic, in my estimation, must go over 32 and a hook.
Yeah, and also, let's ramp it up a little bit. You're getting some pretty good price points here on a triple-double for Luka at a 5-1 price tonight. You know he's going to be hunting around that number. Obviously, we know he's going to score more than 10 points, and you just need one of those quarters, right? Like the first quarter. 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and on the way you go, because we are expecting this. Nobody is looking at the Mavericks going on the road going like, man, Gafford was the key to that equation. Never saw that coming, boy. 33 points. What? You know what I mean? We're not doing that. Like, it's about the upper echelon players. Like, this game is going to be won or lost whether Luka Doncic shows up. Now, the one thing we know, he's going to show up tonight, but how efficient is he going to be? If he shoots 28 times, can he make 18 of those shots? We'll find that out. But if you are a big game hunting, Luka's the guy to go to, because you hear me say this a lot. There's no way at the end of the game, Luka's like, the ball just didn't get to me. I'm sorry, I couldn't help my team out. He will make sure that ball's in his hand, and I expect a big performance tonight, and maybe a look at a triple-double at that 5-1 price.
P.J. Washington was Dallas's second leading scorer in the first 2 games of this NBA championship set in Boston. That cannot happen. It's got to be Kyrie Irving tonight. 23 and a hook is his points prop. In the first 2 games, of course, we saw Kristaps Porzingis, and KP was a huge factor in Beantown. We have not seen him in Game 3 or Game 4. The Celtics are reporting kind of through people that he's a break of glass emergency case tonight if absolutely necessary. We don't expect to see Kristaps Porzingis in Game 5. And in the absence of KP in Games 3 and 4, Derek Lively has been huge for Dallas. At home in Dallas, at least 11 points. In both Games 3 and 4, at least 12 boards as well. I liked him to go over either 8.5 points or 8.5 rebounds on Friday. He did both for a second consecutive game. Now it's time, before we say farewell, to give you a best bet on this Monday. Ahead of Game 5, ahead of a Monday MLB card, maybe a look in Omaha, Nebraska at the Men's College World Series as well. So before we say farewell, and before we say goodbye, it's time for Bye Bye Bye. Donnie's best bet on this Monday is what?
You know, I'm taking this guy to also get an RBI, but my best bet tonight, Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers in the leadoff hole tonight. That is going to be 2+ bases at the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's a +110. He's done very well against left-handed pitching over the past month. And for me, David Peterson, over the last month and a half, the worst pitcher on the card today with an xFIP minus of 123. So 2 singles gets it done, a double gets it done, a triple to home run. You do the math on that one. It's +110. Marcus Semien to record 2+ bases tonight for the Texas Rangers.
Fade the Grimace Mets in any capacity in your own scenario. New York +106 on the road tonight in Arlington. Is it fair to say, DRS, your best bet for game number 5 is under 209 in the hook?
Yeah, I like the under 209 in a hook tonight, and certainly cheering on the Mavericks. I just don't think they'll be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I don't either. I think Boston wins championship number 18 tonight. In fact, I think the Celtics cover in doing so. Lay the 6.5 for me. It's a rather simple bet on Boston. There's not a prop look that I love. I think Derek Lively makes some sense. I think 3-point props for both Kyrie and Luka, a great way to attack with their points props lofty. But I think it's just Boston minus 6.5. And tomorrow we crown the Celtics with the most championships in NBA history. I did like the under. Hopefully you were listening in hour 2 in the opener today in Omaha. The elimination game between Florida and NC State now dropped already from 10.5 to 9 and a hook. I think NC State, the Pack as an underdog, worth a sprinkle today against the Gators. He is Donnie Right Side. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for us on this Monday, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. We're back tomorrow. That's Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern time here on the Grid.